Party people, welcome to the Commons, the place where we discuss the culture, the goings on, where it could go and where it's been and how it could hopefully improve. I'm here again. My name is Stanley Tatum, and we've also brought back the rest that'll make up the Fantastic Four. King Asin is here, Maulud Sadiq is here, and Dawood is back, blessing us with the presence. I'm saying,
that's what I'm saying. About to come from off tour. I'm about to tell y'all where I come from.
Right. All right. And there it is. So last Sunday, we were all tuned in, probably for one of the greatest events, I won't say in recent memory. I know folks have been going up to inner space, William Shatner and everybody else. But no, last Sunday at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, Big Daddy Kane took on LL Cool J. I'm not LL Cool J, KRS-One.
Right. That's what's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a story for another time. But yeah, KRS-One took on Big Daddy Kane, something that had a lot of heads, just anticipating. And we did a podcast about it, just with our predictions and our observations. And now we want to talk about, let's recap this, So anybody want to start and just, off the cuff, we can just go around and just say just what our initial feelings. Yeah, what our initial feelings were.
Let the man with the note.
All right, okay, Dawood.
Yeah, especially since I was absent the last one to try to make up, I will jump into it. The first thing I checked, I really dug was I liked how DJ Scratch and Kid Capri were rocking the house playing like hip hop hits, especially from Scratch's side, and Kid Capri mixing up hip hop hits and R&B hits in his mixes. So you got to really hear when they were doing that. I liked how it set off with everybody doing their thing and participating. With KRS, the one surprise that kind of caught me out there was that he threw in a favorite of mine, Part-Time Sucker. And when him doing that one kind of like said, oh, well, it's over. That's what I'm saying. He just did it because he was pulling out, some of these album tracks or whatever. But the whole thing went off real well. And as I was discussing with somebody else previously, again, I predicted that, it was going to be interesting. KRS might have more of a catalog because of his album and release depth and the hits, but Kane came in prepared and he put on a hell of a show. So they pretty much both won in their different realms of KRS knowing how to do a show and rock a party on with his hits, and Kane putting on a hell of a show and showing the kind of hits that he had. And of course, there was stuff that he could have added on also. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time.
Okay, good. Yeah. Maulud, you want to jump in?
I'll go after a scene, man.
All right, no worries.
Well, okay, I'll start by noting how interesting it was that it took Kane a second to come out. And we never really got the story on that. Not to say that I've heard every report as to what was what, because, there's so many reports out there about this battle, like why wasn't G-Rap there? Was, what was going on with Kid Capri and Scratch? And I'm sure we'll touch all of that. But when Kane came out after his introduction, and KRS-One capitalized on that by making a jab at him and then just starting into his joint. Mm-hmm. Kane just saunters on stage like, yeah, whatever. And it was cool, but I really wanted to know what was up with that. Like, what happened? Because, it was a similar thing when Dipset was battling the Lox and it took them a second to come out. It was really a weird, awkward thing. And it can almost set the pace for what's going to happen. But Kane picked it back up.
Yeah.
Personally,
go ahead.
I think that KRS mopped the floor with Big Daddy Kane. That's, that's me. I think that the fact that he was able to not only get the crowd involved, but the fact that he was able to display the fact that his lyrics and his songs resonated with people to the fact that he could not rap and the people would join in. Whereas I don't think that if Big Daddy Kane had to stop rapping, the people would have been able to do his lyrics in the same way. I think like when Big Daddy Kane was rapping, it was almost like it was silent. Whereas when KRS-One was rapping, like the people were like hype. because they know the songs and they were going along with the songs. So because of that, personally, I think that Kane got mobbed.
Okay. All right. No doubt. I mean, for me, I thought that it exceeded my expectations. I thought that, just in general, yes, KRS was there. He started first. He made his quip. But I also think this could have been a technical issue. This could have been just sort of a behind the scenes issue. But I also think Kane just wanted to make an entrance. I don't think he wanted to stand there and be announced or be introduced. I think there was something where he needed to just walk down that ramp, or just like, come out from stage right, come on to where he, to where the marker was on the floor, let people see him, and then make his way down, in his own way, and I think that's in some ways just in keeping with, who he's been as a, rapper / entertainer. I think there's a level of showmanship that was there. And I'm still loving that tracksuit. I'm loving the hat. One of my boys from high school, he had chimed in on Facebook. He's like, I've got that hat. And so
bottom.
Silky, yeah. So Silky Black, I know you're out there. And I hope that you watch this. I saw your text, and the next time that we all meet in the fall, you need to be rocking that, so there it is. But, overall, man, listen, when we had talked about this before, you had made it all, clear. It's like, yes, Kane is a showman. Kane has got lyrics. I don't think anyone denies his rapping ability, but yeah, I mean, we're talking maybe 4 albums on Cold Chillin', or 4 or 5 albums before that partnership ended, or before he left Warner Brothers. So, meanwhile, KRS, you've got all the stuff that he did at Jive, and everything else that he did after that. Then I'm sure, there are tons of at least 5 or 6 marble pads, that he's had, before he got signed. So, hey, it's, it was just evident, like you all said, you're looking at 2 different styles, within the same era. But Chris is, just he's that type of guy or that type of performer where people hang on his every word. If you know his stuff, it's because you've been listening. If you know Kane's stuff, it's because you've been partying, and that's just how it is. And it just really showed. And I think there was plenty of love there. I think all of the guests that were there, that was good. But yeah, it was definitely KRS's night, from a rap perspective. And then also from just to say, in some ways, it's almost like he was directing the action, or at least having the tone, setting the tone and carrying the tone throughout the event. So does anybody want to chime in? Anybody feel different?
Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead now, because you went first.
Yeah, I would say a little bit different on how the crowd was reacting, because I did hear when it was going in and out that the Kane fans who were definitely in the house, especially the ladies there for Kane, they were definitely following up with him. And then when they were turning out to the crowd, they were showing the different stuff. One part that I really liked, that I took note of, was like when they put the camera on. Well, it was like for the brothers who were all there. When they put the camera on Charlie Mack and he's doing all the lyrics of Raw, when he was doing the stuff, I was just like, okay, yeah, now we're getting into it. And that's the thing. I was kind of concerned myself initially going in of how Kane was going to represent against KRS's massive catalog. We're talking about, especially from the Jive, major record label releases, at least 5 albums with 3 banger singles off of each of those albums, and then some other stuff with different appearances. And the thing is, Kane, as we probably knew, he came in there confident. He knew what he was dealing with, and he came in performing. One thing I will give to Kane is that when he came in, I mean, same as KRS, but Kane pretty much, he came in alone, doing his thing, doing his dance moves initially by himself, until he did some other moves with, I don't know if it was Scoob or Scrap, you know what I'm saying? So he's still working with only like 2/3 of the trio of them performing. But he was kicking it that whole period, and he was on it. And like you said, the tracksuit, the gear, the brim, everything was on point. So I will say that I was surprised and very impressed with how hard Kane held his part. KRS probably had the edge because of what he put out there, but they were going head up. So I could almost say it's probably near tied, with KRS maybe edging out a little bit, as kind of expected. But I was impressed with Kane.
I'll add that I think that Chris, y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that Chris edged him with the hits. If we're talking about a hit parade, KRS is unrivaled. But what was interesting is that Kane, it's almost like you got to see the two different styles against each other, juxtaposed. Chris, I think he knew he was going to be doing a lot that night. So he made sure, I'm not going to overexert myself. I'm going to let the crowd participate. And I'm also going to show and prove how much people are into my records and this, that, and the third. But what I was doing when watching the battle, and I would watch the comments, you could see some people were like, "Oh, Chris is winded. Chris is out of breath." And then maybe they didn't understand that that was by design what he was doing, because he, in his mind, I think he's like, this could go all night. I don't want to totally fall off. Let me let the crowd get involved and let me show and prove how much the crowd's into what I'm doing. While Kane, being, who is in constant condition because of his touring, wants all of those lyrics to come from him, and he didn't have the amount of hits that KRS had, but his performance and how it affected the crowd, there was a bit of a difference. I saw the crowd scream for the KRS anthems, no doubt. But with Kane, it was like people were directly connecting with him and really appreciating it. And what I started to see was that it came down to, and this has been a constant over the years, who you like. Some people like KRS. I remember I dated a girl who said, I hate him. And I was like, why? She was just like, I just do. And the thing that I felt was probably that she didn't like the overbearing teacher. That doesn't resonate as much to the women as the brother who's catering. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And with Kane, his whole style from lyrically to presentation, that it's all for them. And there were a lot of women in the house. And like Daoud said, I heard a lot of people kicking Kane lyrics too. Like I saw someone say in some post, Kane's rhymes don't age well. And one of my boys put up a post of a couple dudes screaming his rhymes. Because remember, they're in Brooklyn. And I was like, yo, I want to try to get that post to that link there. Because first of all, that's not true. What I honestly say is that Kane's hits have aged well. He just didn't have as many hits as KRS. Right. But I told my girl, Nikki, who we all know, Kane could have won that battle. To me, he could have edged KRS out if he did a few things. And I'll run them down real quick. One is he came out, instead of just rhyming with Biz, he came out to Wrath of Kane, which I don't even know if he played. Did he play it last night? Did he play it that night?
I believe, yeah, he did. He did.
Okay. If he came out to that, if one of the hits that he didn't choose to run was Hard Being the Kane, that should have been on there.
Okay.
If they're just illiterate, so I won't consider it. That should have been on his list. Thirdly, he came out to just rhyming with Biz and tributing Biz. I respect that. But I feel like if he came out to Wrath of Kane, later on in the show, he could have said, I want to give utmost respect and all that to Bismarck. And he could have ran down 3 songs that he wrote for Biz, including just rhyming with Biz, in a medley. He could have ran Picking Boogers. He could have ran Going Off, and he could have ran Vapors, and he would have had the crowd open. Fourth, and not least, when he brought Shantae out, he could have said, a lot of people don't know that I co-wrote this with you, just so he wouldn't make it seem like she don't write her rhymes. And he could have said a verse and then let her pull the trigger on Chris on Have a Nice Day, where he said where she said your name sound like a whack radio station. People would have been open because she rhymed, and see, everybody's like, yeah, but then he could have been like, yeah, these are, and then he could have ran his best cameos. You know what I mean? Like he could have ran Don't Curse, Erase Racism. He could have ran that as a part, and then Burn Hollywood Burn. Yeah, that was another one. And you know, the crowd would have went nuts. And then the songs that aren't as popular, if he let Scratch wrap them up, like if he says a verse, let scratch him up at the end, it would have blew it up. And I feel like if he'd have done that, and this is just my opinion, his performance would have edged out Kane. And see, the thing that people got to remember is it's about the hits. That's what Verzuz is about, and it's a celebration. But with these performances now, your performance can ether your opponent, because that's how Jadakiss be Dipset. There's no way, even though we know how it happened, there's no way with the amount of hits Dipset has for that crowd, they should have lost. But Jada's whole performance burnt up Dipset. And Kane could have done that too, but Kane is such a classy dude. He backed off a few times that he shouldn't have, to me. But he wasn't in it for that.
Yeah, I think that to your point, he didn't enter properly. That's like I think that he got the song choice wrong. I think that you know, like if he had came into Ain't No Half Stepping, even that would have been more of a win for him. So I think that not only was his song selection like poor, I think that again, whoever said that Kane's lyrics didn't age well, I think what they mean is, I have a test with people that I do. I say, no music, no prompt, recite this person's rhymes. And I think that people would have a more difficult time doing that with Kane off the rip than they would with KRS-One. So I think that those things that you mentioned are definitely important. However, I think that he also needs, like, he would have had to have done something to take away from the strength and power of KRS-One's lyrics. Because at the end of the day, it's like saying you went to see a movie and the cinematography was bad and the acting was bad, but you like the movie. Like, yeah, you can still like the movie, but a movie's about acting and cinematography. Like, so with Big Daddy Kane, if I want to see the entertainer of Big Daddy Kane, then I need to see the show that I'm accustomed to when I see Big Daddy Kane. He should have came out with his dancers. He should have came out with Scoop and Scrap, and he should have done some of those dances. He's done it before. Yep. When he performed in Central Park, he did it. When he performed in Brooklyn, the concert in Brooklyn, he did it. So it's like, this is your moment to do that. And those, not doing those things, to me, is like a big L.
But that means it's about performance then.
Well, no, I'm saying he had to do that in order to compete with the lyrics of KRS-One. He had to do that in the hits of KRS-One. And without doing those things, then I have to reflect on the songs that you have. And like, although the songs to me are good songs in the moment, and if they come on, I hear them and I enjoy them, that's cool. But they don't resonate with me the same way that a KRS-One does, only because of the fact that KRS-One doesn't say stuff like, you know, I take a break, I shake, I make a break. Like, those are wasted words, you know? So I'm more along the line of a person who's going to come out and do what's similar to what we come to appreciate about them as an MC.
Okay.
Wasted words.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Heavy D has another person who did those take a break, I shake, I take, like, no. Like, what did Heavy D say? I detect a fat check. Like, what? What are you saying? If we were to take these people's lyrics and put them under a microscope, you would see what I'm saying. I'm not doing that right now, but one day we could just have a time where we're going to sit down, put someone's lyrics under a microscope and read them slowly. And so you can see what I mean by wasted words.
Okay. I won't debate it right now for the sake of time.
Yeah. We will.
See, because a waste is one thing. If you say, okay, we put this on a scale and this is heavier or this resonates more, I can get with that. But waste, I don't know.
Okay. Or it's just a style to get you through to either the next line or to take you into the chorus, or something like. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that it's not, those words could be eliminated and the song would still make sense.
Okay.
And so if those words could be eliminated and it still would make sense, that means those words are not necessary.
Okay. All right. No doubt. All right. So, any other, there was a lot going on.
Sure.
I think that, when Kane dropped his bit about KRS, I think when he dropped a line about, what was it? When you were having beef with Juice Crew, I stayed out of it, or something along those lines. Or just like, he's like, I left y'all to it. I thought that was good. I thought Chris's acapella is like Kane does shows, but I just showed you.
Right.
I think even if you were just even if you just had a cursory knowledge of who KRS was, looking at his overall performance on that night shows you the breadth of just who he was or who he is as a performer, as a lyricist. I think that it's just like, okay, you know what? I've waved my hand. I've had the towel. I've got the washcloth and the towel in my hand. But now it's just everyone just sit down. I'm talking to you, and I just need y'all to listen. No boom bap, no nothing. Just hear what I have to say. You're going to hear what I have to say because I've got you. School is in session. So that was the thing that I thought was good. Anyone else before we start getting into cameos and things like that?
There was an awesome freestyle. Go ahead, Dowd. I'm sorry.
Yes. No, you can go ahead. And I'll come after.
No, there was, and I have to go back to it because after watching the Verzuz, you're like, oh yeah, that was a long show. Ooh, I enjoyed it. But then a few days later, I went back and decided to listen to it without watching so that I could get a feel. Because I always think about that Cold Crush versus Fantastic battle where you had to really listen to it to know who did what. And I'll be honest and say that I enjoyed both of them. I thought it was awesome. I really got into the same assessment that most people had. Hip hop won because they were both kicking it. But you could notice that song for song, KRS definitely took it. He had the hits, but there were certain parts where freestyle wise, like Kane did one where I was just like, ooh, I wish there was more of this, and KRS, I'm sure could have gone back and forth with him, but that might have just taken over. They might have forgotten. They'd be like, oh, wait a minute, we ran out of time, if they started doing all that. So
yeah. Just a quick aside, I'm going to digress for a minute. I met, and this is maybe about like 5, maybe even like 6 or 7 years ago. I met one of the brothers from Cold Crush, and I just asked him. I said, what's up? He was, blah blah blah. We were at an event, and I said, can you give me the backstory about what happened with y'all and Force MCs? And he was just like, simply put, we had another show to go to. We had already left. We had done what we needed to do, but we needed to, I think we were in Jersey and then we needed to get to the Bronx. So everyone had to pile into the car, and then make their way to the next gig. So it was virtually impossible for us to come back to whatever Force MCs was saying. So obviously it got recorded. And then from there, it's just, it just becomes part of history and part of perception. when reality was decidedly different. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's interesting.
We can get back to this. Yeah.
There are so many factors to what goes on, especially with all of these battles. Like, I mean, with Kool Moe and Busy B, where it's just like, okay, who was checking who beforehand? Was this a surprise attack? I mean, with Cold Crush and Fantastic Five, that type of thing. It's just like, what can we hear? But also what was done, like I was hearing, like, that Cold Crush, that they had tuxedos and they were really able to catch, Fantastic had tuxedos and they were really able to catch the ladies in the audience. And all those elements come in, relating it back to this. It's just that Kane did so well in being able to present his strengths. To what Asim was saying, there's strategic things that he probably could have done where it could have given him much more of a leg up, where people could really see where he was coming from. But I think he really did good for what he did. So I enjoyed that part of it.
I enjoyed the whole thing. I mean, because for myself, when I think about what rap has become, I don't necessarily think that 10 years, 15 years down the line, they'll look back at the songs that they listen to in the same way that we look at these songs. No. I think that now, because songs are so throwaway and songs are so here, and gone so quickly, I don't think that those songs will be something that they remember. Also because of the fact that the industry was smaller, there were fewer acts. So when someone stood out, they really stood out. It took a lot to stand out back in those days, as opposed to now. You could be a person who has, 1 billion streams, and if they bring them up to us, we don't know who those people are. You know?
True.
Like my mom wouldn't know who those people are, but if I ask my mom who KRS-One is, my mom knows who KRS-One is. My mom knows who Big Daddy Kane is. So I think that for myself, that's why I enjoyed it, because it's like this is hearkening to a time where rap actually meant something. Like the words meant something, the performances meant something, being original meant something. So that's why it stood out. That's why it stood out to me. That's why I enjoyed it. But I had just one question. This is just when Big Daddy Kane says that he'll make a muscle, grab a mic and hustle. Explain that to me. Okay, that's it. Assalamu alaikum.
No.
I mean, think about that.
I know what first came to my mind, but I said, let me see if I can delve into a deeper meaning. And listen, I'm not going to try to do it. I feel like it was just a sequence of rhymes in terms of what he'll do. You know what I mean? It's almost like Redman, strike a pose like Madonna. It doesn't have anything to do with what was said before or after. It's just a rhyme in terms of what he'll do. He's saying, "Look, I'll make a muscle. I'm a masculine dude. Grab the mic and get busy. This, that, and the third."
Is it like
I'll make the mic and hustle?
I don't know if he's trying to connect those two things. I just think he's saying these are things that I do.
Like muscle, hustle.
Now, see, my interpretation with that, because I mean, just like I remember all the Kane's lyrics of his best stuff, he's just like, "I'll make a muscle, grab the mic and hustle, while you stand dazed in the maze. I was kicking another round with it." I mean, it's like what he's saying. I think he's showing all of his varied abilities, where he's just like, "Yo, look, I will flex and make a muscle, and I can like grab the mic and hustle, and I can dance." And you're amazed because I can over here flex and dance and amaze you with my lyrics at the same time. So I'm on a level that none of y'all are going to be able to hang with, because I'm able to do these things that nobody else can. So that's what I got from that.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
And
question answered.
And I have to say, in dealing with that and thinking about that, and I'm glad you asked that question, I didn't see any wasted words there.
No, that's not that wasn't the wasted word line. That was just something that came to my mind in that particular moment. But like I said, that's a conversation for another day.
Okay. It's a good conversation. I'm in the files for the future.
Right.
Okay. All right. So jumping now, you had Legs, you had Pop Master Fable, I believe, was there on the floor. You had the Breakers out there. You had MCs. You had MCs who were there. Buckshot. I know they'd work with KRS, but I read about that before I watched the show. So having them there, all the guest cameos, thoughts, and did they certainly add something? And were the absences of some people who didn't show, did that really have an impact as well?
I'd like to add that it was awkward to me to see Fable on one side and Legs on another side, because to me, they're both original Rocksteady. So that was awkward to me, and that would maybe not, and some of us, not to everybody.
No, it was awkward to me.
It was yes, right. You know what I mean? So that was interesting. I think that KRS has always been dedicated to the culture, and he's always wanted to incorporate those other aspects. I don't know how much he discerns, like, I gotta have him. I think that he just says, look, if you can do it, come on out, and I'm just with it. Because every time I've seen him, like the Zulu event, Stan, that you were mentioning that we went to, I remember he stopped rhyming to push the B-boys, like, yo, all right, go, do it, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's his whole attitude. I feel like the cats that Legs came out with, as well as Legs, they showed a little bit better. You know what I mean? But I think that both of them, it was just dope to have them. Two, let's talk about Buckshot a little bit. When he came out with KRS, I was like, okay, I know he's down with KRS. I know that Chris sampled him for this Madism track. It kind of makes sense. And they've been down for a while, because he looks at him kind of as, a mentee of sorts. That was cool. But when he came out with Chris, I thought initially, this is awkward because Kane is from Brooklyn. So Buckshot, who's from Coney Island, I was like, that's a little awkward. But what was really awkward was then at the end when he was freestyling and he approached Kane. And I was like, man, he's messing up. I felt it in my stomach. And he knew he was. And Kane's whole demeanor and look backed him down. Backed him all the way down. Like, what's this?
It's like, it's not. Because it's like, it's not that kind of party.
Yeah. And Kane.
Really,
right. And I heard Kane's interview with Fat Joe afterwards. And he said it could have got real ugly for Buck.
Ain't nobody.
He ain't know where this was going. And
ain't nobody. Also, because Buckshot, although his lyrics were like that, he's not built like that. Kane is actually from that era. Kane is actually from, this is a person who ran with the Brooklyn Zoo. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. This is not he ain't to be played with. No. You know what I'm saying? Like, even Buckshot, you're a dancer, bruh. And that's not an insult, but I'm just saying you're not that. You're not what Kane is.
And see, it shows the generational gap in terms of awareness. Daoud and I, we talk about this all the time. Something happened when those kids came up, when the Mobb Deep and the Black Moons and all them. I love the music, but I remember being like, what are these guys? What are they talking about? What are they doing? It's the shorties with the guns. Give me the tool. It's that whole attitude. And you're like, yo, man, what are you, what is this with these kids? Juvenile hell. It's a whole other attitude where they have a little more reckless abandon, but it's wild how these cats past 40 still are lacking this awareness. Cause I was like, Buck, what are you doing? And to me, that was his strike too. Cause I remember his first strike for me was when he sided with Tupac against Biggie. Cause I remember when he was rocking with him with the Death Row East and, the One Nation thing. Listen, I see what Tupac was manipulating. And you don't have to like Biggie. And I knew that Boot Camp had a beef with Biggie because he was making money and popular. Go figure. But at the end of the day, y'all from the same crib. What are you doing? Why are you even coming towards Kane? Sit down.
The Buckshot situation, just from him coming out, where it's just like, how many MCs must get dissed? And it's just like, with Buck doing his part and having KRS, looped on the thing. But him stepping up into Kane's face, even trying to tie it up like everything's good, shaking his hand afterwards. The whole thing was a very awkward, uncomfortable situation for the reasons like that Scene had spoke about. I'm just kind of like, okay, myself as a hip hop fan, who is aware of the borough differences and the wards, especially from traveling with Stan to these different places at all these different times of observing it in records. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is what's going on here. This you got to watch out for, this type of thing. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, doing that type of thing. I'm just kind of like, okay, yo, look, especially this is from a more positive, more balanced era. Him stepping into that kind of realm, it was really kind of funny. And you're really kind of crossing lines. I'm like, dude, this dude was the dude who put Brooklyn on his back and represented and opened the door for all of the Brooklyn MCs, for Biggie, for Buckshot, for everybody else that came afterwards.
Put Brooklyn on the map.
Yeah, exactly. Put Brooklyn on the map. So you don't come on him in an even sideways, shady kind of thing. This is the This is the Godfather. You don't disrespect that man in that way and then try to say, oh, yeah, but it's all love, all respect. And you could see on Kane's face. Like, I didn't see the interview with Fat Joe, but I got to check it. It's like, yeah, it could have gotten really ugly because it's kind of like, bro, what are you doing? As wild as KRS was in as a person and in the performance where there was even some funny stuff said every now and then, he didn't come in that way where it's just kind of like, okay, habitual lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, I do. It's like, because y'all are from Philly, so y'all remember like when Steady B and EST and them fell out, they were just like, you ain't, you calling Hilltop, you ain't even from here. Like when you're not from so Buckshot, like you said, you're from Coney Island or wherever he claims, like you're either way, you're still younger, in age than Big Daddy Kane. So you grew up listening to and feeling respect and honor, because of Big Daddy Kane, because you're from Brooklyn, wherever in Brooklyn you're from. So just on that level alone, you should be like, I respect Big Daddy Kane on that level alone. But to your point, Scene, I think that's something that we really need to explore at some point. I think we really need to explore what happened between 93 and I guess I would stop at 98 because after that it was just whatever. It was just it's a shit show. But
okay. Yeah. Make it plain. Make it plain.
But 93 is like, okay, the dancing is gone.
Is what away. Everyone was thug mugging. Everyone was
and the
mean
style
mugging.
is gone. No one wants to be stylish anymore. Everyone wants to wear army clothes and fucking. It's just.
It could just be. You know what? I don't want to. I just don't want to hypothesize just straight up. But you think about when. All right, so you figure. Kane 88. KRS from 87. I think at that point, we're still, knee deep in the crack era, and folks are scrambling, folks are dealing, also folks are getting locked up, folks are also, you've got the territorial wars and all the other stuff. And then you've got little kids, probably witnessing all of that. And it's probably, I just think it could be just, music is one thing, but I also think environment is another. And I think there's probably just something there where, kids, those youngins, and you're really talking about what, maybe a 7 or 8 year difference in terms of age. They just became hardened. I think they just became hardened. I think also that there was when did NWA's second album drop?
91.
90. Well, the EP came out
1990, mother effing one.
Yeah.
Right. So,
so on. Let the beat flow on.
Because I need some war form. The mother. So it's a different shit. So I'm like, yeah.
Because and I'm just thinking this.
That's a whole different thing, though. Because again, like I said, I have to make sure that I differentiate that because I lived out in Colorado. That is, that's a whole different other world. That's a whole different other thing. Like that's a whole nother conversation.
True.
Because on the East Coast, the only people that were talking about that kind of stuff was Tretch and Onyx. And Onyx, like I said, was more of a cartoonish type of thing. No one was talking about kicking ass on wax or beating ass on wax. Freddie Fox. There was not a lot of that. It wasn't
Right.
the go-to thing. But on the West Coast, that was their thing because that's their life. And I promise you, that whole where you from stuff and all that culture, that shit is real. And
Okay.
that's, like I said, that's a whole different conversation.
Now, you all are making some strong points, and this is the thing, and I think we can touch on it a little bit in this combo. Stan, you said a lot was happening, and you can even look at the rap game and you see it. Like Slick Rick actually got locked up. So it's
Right.
Once again
For shooting and trying to shoot his cousin.
Right.
Or, yeah.
You know, so it's almost like a paradigm shift, real time. You know, Slick Rick gets locked up. I mean, these guys are on top of the world. And let's talk about this briefly. Rakim and Kane, kings of the game, started to lose their grip. I just wanted to mention this about Kane. Kane, you know, along the way, he's always done some things that might have been a little bit questionable or ahead of its time. But I just remember how up until Prince of Darkness, his fourth album, he was sharp. He was sharp lyrically. Something happened before the next album came out. It Looks Like a Job For. Like when you listen to It Looks Like a Job For, the lyrics and the similes, it's just not enough. Like there's something funny. Even his presentation, like he had a hoodie on. It was like, what's going on here? But even within that, before that, he had done a movie, I guess, with Mara Van Peebles. The
Posse.
No,
yeah, he did Posse.
He did Posse, but then he did Gunman.
Gunman.
He did
right.
a performance at the Apollo, and Daoud might have been with me, and we were both watching it. And I remember being like, what's going on with Kane? It seems like he picked up weight, and he don't sound right. It's not the lean and mean Kane, where he sounds like he's a little bit, and he still has a little bit of that now, to where he doesn't sound like the Kane we came up with, as opposed to Jay-Z, who sounded the same for almost 30 years.
Well, okay. Then this is, I think part of it is, you know, what did Biggie tell Rocky in Rocky 3? It's like he became civilized. Now it's not just, you know, you're not rapping just to eat. You know, it's sort of, okay, now you're out there before Fresh Prince is out acting. You know, before six degrees of separation, or maybe it was around that time. But nonetheless, you're the one who's making that kind of breakthrough. You know, you do Posse, you do Gunman, you're in Juice, you know, and you have that. Then, you know, you've got other folks who see what you have or see what you've had since like 1987, that kind of sex appeal, that voice. And all of a sudden Madonna comes calling, you know, and you know, and you can't really, you know, you talk about that, and then what, like within a year or something like that, he does Playgirl. It's sort of embracing that whole, it's embracing the whole, not necessarily lover man, but just sort of that whole sex appeal thing is probably one aspect. And then from there, it's like, look, you know, things are, you know, while he's going through that, the landscape is also changing.
You got Run DMC walking around with bald heads.
Yes. So you just think there was a certain point. I mean, people can look and sort of laugh at Hammer with the, you know, with the funky headhunter. Yeah. And just even the funky headhunter, you know, wearing the Scully and stuff like that, and just, you know, looking serious. But yeah, I mean, just the landscape in many ways was changing. You take a look at PE's rise. You know, and yeah, Chuck had flavor to provide humor, but nonetheless, this was serious. You know, he didn't have dancers. He just had a crew, you know, with Uzis, just, you know, just in step. You know, you things like that, but bit by bit, I think things were changing a little bit. And even to go back a little, even before that, you talk about how there wasn't sort of this gangster element or this kind of, you know, that kind of angst. Yeah, I mean, even when Schoolie D would talk about, you know, everything with him was just, it was a part of storytelling. You know, it was more about, it was still storytelling. But yeah, I think there was a point where, you know, Club 90, I'm trying to think, Main Source,
Leaders of the New School.
yeah, Leaders of the New School, you had De La, you know, things were still branching out. But you still have folks for some reason, you know, there was a point where people wanted stuff that was hard.
But
And
this is my point, though. Like to what you're saying, and Asim also touched on it. If you look at the years where crack was the worst, the music doesn't reflect that. You know what I'm saying? Like when the music was when the city was its absolute, New York was its absolute worst. The most like thing that you have that even talks about that is the message. But outside of that, there is nothing that would let you know that the city is in shambles. Whereas, like I said, on the West Coast, I mean, from Battle Ram on, like you know what's going on out there, and it's there. You know, outside. I'm talking like when they really start rapping. I'm not talking about World Class Wrecking Crew or anything like that. I'm talking about, you know, from the time there's NWA, then there's Compton's Most Wanted, all that stuff. Those songs are not about. Those aren't fictional songs. Where something like Onyx that's a fictional thing. Like with Black Moon, that's a fictional thing. These are things of fiction. He's not going around shooting people.
It's all fiction. It's all fiction.
No, it is all fiction.
For the artist.
And it's like in dealing with Kane's situation, I think the real problem, and you can kind of see that, and that's why I have to give it to him that he was able to do what he did and stay as strong lyrically. As you said, I didn't hear like look like a job for Prince of Darkness, because I was really disappointed in his second album. It's a Big Daddy thing, because that album to me was choppy in comparison to how Long Live the Kane was produced, where it's like all of the songs had a certain power and strength to them, you know what I'm saying? Even to the day you're mine, you know what I'm saying? And other stuff, you know what I'm saying? Word to the Motherland, the extended version that was added on to it. I mean, with It's a Big Daddy thing, he's on the cover of the album with his shirt off.
No, that's Taste of Chocolate.
No,
you're talking about Big Daddy thing.
A Big Daddy thing. The second album. We were all hyped for it. It was 1989. We're all hyped for it. It comes out, you know what I'm saying? Smooth Operator is dope. This isn't the theme of who Big Daddy is. You know, Mortal Kombat, another victory, and everything else is good. But the stuff, production-wise, was a little bit choppy from what Kane, Teddy Riley, and other people were doing. It didn't seem consistent. It seemed like there were more songs than necessary. It wasn't like the tight 10 songs of the previous album, of that classic that he put before. So when he was doing that, and then he's doing the joint with Lil Daddy Shane or Scoop Lover and them, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, you know what I'm saying? All the young ladies of a light-skinned breed, you got what I need. I'm like, nigga, what are you talking about? And it's bad enough. I mean, it's like he got a whole bunch of red bone chicks on the cover of his album. I'm like, you pushing the colorism to a whole different level, bruh. It's already clear. Like when he did was it Ain't No Half Step? And I'm just like, them chicks are fine, but goddamn, they all the same tone. Ain't none of these chicks anywhere near half as dark as Kane is. I'm like, you're really saying a message that's already been promoted out there in all of the Babyface and every other videos. And for him to endorse it almost verbally on It's a Big Daddy thing, and it wasn't consistent all the way through, that's when I already saw that he was falling off. He has all the skills, but conceptually, he didn't have the executive producer vision to put together an album that could be tighter. It was good, it was dope, it was of the era, but it wasn't as dope as the follow-up albums that KRS or Rakim or Public Enemy and other people were doing. And so from that point, he had lost me already, and I'm still sitting there, album after album. Enough Respect, dude, he kills it over on the Juice soundtrack and other type stuff. But it's like, you know, in Don't Curse, why does he have a doggone wrap around his back and a paisley purple shirt? I'm like, damn, Kane is lost, man. And how all of us were. We were all saying, yo, Kane will be back, Kane will be back, Kane will be back. And I'm like, cuz, you had it so strong for one album where it was giving LL a problem, but LL goes back into the studio and comes back with Mama Said Knock You Out. When Kane was beating out LL during that time period, Kane did not have the same type of focus and experience that LL did, where he could stay in the game and go into a whole nother new level. Because we as fans were all waiting. We were like, Kane's going to get himself together and get his style and lyrical ability put into song properly. But it never fully got there.
I don't think that Kane himself ever really understood what he was doing wrong. Like when you listen to interviews, because over the years I've checked his interviews, and he acknowledges where he's erred, and gotten off track. But the thing is, he'll always bring it back to a wrong assessment. Like he won't understand that. He'll say, it ain't me, it's them. And I'm like, well,
yeah, that's what LL did with Walking with the Panther. Same thing.
Yeah,
And he readily, I'm sorry, LL readily admitted, I think he even said this in the source. He's like, yeah, I did some things and they didn't work. He just said, I did some, when he talks about, I'm so bad, I can blah, 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 my own blah, 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 and I'm just sort of like, yeah, he readily admits that it didn't work.
Right.
So,
he admitted with pink cookies in a plastic bag getting crushed by buildings wasn't probably the best idea.
Because maybe it was a little too creative, or, and these are LL's words.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Big Daddy Kane he's never been.
And artists believe in their stuff. Like Erykah Badu says, we're sensitive about our shit. LL and Kane, they'll never believe that they were off point. They'll just think, oh, well, I was just ahead of my time. And in some ways they're right. But in some ways, you're just like, nah, you missed it. You were doing too much, but they're never going to see that. And when I listen to Kane describe,
I don't think Common would ever do with Electric Circus. Same thing.
Wow, I like that album. I like that album.
I've heard people say that though. It's one or the other.
Like in dealing with Electric Circus, won't get too far into it, but I'm like, I remember listening to this and I was like, okay, yeah, I dig this. He's doing some different stuff or whatever on it. But I remember hearing there was an element of people who were just like, yo, what the hell is he doing? It's because of Erykah Badu and everything of that sort. And I'm just kind of like, well, because I'm a little more bugged out into that more experimental type stuff and what Erykah and the more experimental type things of like the Hendrix type stuff, maybe I was less critical of it because that's what I'm drawn to. That connects me with who I am. But man, yeah, I dug it. But I think stated as an artist, if you're into it and you do it and people don't catch it, it might mess you up. But it's kind of like, well, that's where I was at the time. So
yeah, that's what I'm speaking to. I'm not speaking into whether I like a thing or I don't like a thing. I'm speaking more into like when you make a thing that doesn't necessarily connect with an audience. Like I think that Quentin Tarantino was talking about it as far as like with Brian De Palma. He's saying that Brian De Palma will never make like a movie that a hack could make, but he won't make necessarily the best movie. He'll still make but he's made some bad movies that just didn't connect with the people. But if you watch those movies are actually like what's the movie?
They're well crafted.
What's the movie that with John Travolta? It's in Philadelphia.
Blow Up.
Yeah,
Blow Out. Yeah.
I didn't know that movie wasn't successful. I love that movie. You see what I'm saying? But that's the same type of thing. It's like you can make a thing that could be artful and it could be the best thing that you have in you, but it may not connect with the people. And you have to be able to look at yourself and say, okay, well, why didn't this connect?
Now, that's such an important point. I just want to say this. When it comes to hip hop, I understand these artists, the LLs and the Kanes, wanting to connect with the ladies, but if you miss them streets, then you're going to miss the whole point, and you're going to disconnect, and you're going to float away, and it happens. And once you float away, and then the next generation or the next population of artists comes in, coming back is a mother. It usually doesn't happen, especially if you were popular. It ain't like Craig Mack, who people didn't even know his name, coming back to the scene. You were Big Daddy Kane.
MC
You were on
Easy,
top of
right.
the world. Trying to come back now with a hoodie is not going to work. And
Right.
see,
There's no place for you to land.
no, there's not. And this relates to what we were saying about the Nas's and the Black Moons. As much as we might have felt funny about the direction things were going, just like DMX, those guys were speaking to those streets. That's what the kids, because we're in college, we're getting out of college. The kids are in the streets. Even if it's fiction, even if it's fantasy, even if they're living in a world and we're like, why are you doing that? Because you don't need to be doing it. This is their perception. So if the Black Moons and the Nas's and the Mobb Deep speak to that, they win. Those artists win. And the Kanes and them can't come back. The only thing that LL can do is say, I'm going to have a foot in somewhat and a foot out, because I can't do that. I can respect that. I can acknowledge it. I can even sprinkle a little bit, but I can't try to pretend to be Prodigy or Nas.
Right.
I still got to be me. Kane tried to come, and he was like, I'm going to bring in Shaheem and Old Dirty Bastard. It looked ridiculous to me.
That's okay. And just quickly, just to sort of build on that, Special Ed, Snoop Dogg had his album that must have been around 2001, 2002. And there was a point where Special Ed guests on him. There's a posse cut. And the thing about Ed was that Ed was trying to go with the same cadence that everybody else was. It was sort of like, and to me, I always thought that Special Ed always had like a nice flow.
Right.
It was just very smooth. But to try and get where, not necessarily it was choppy, but you're carrying on just sort of, wherever like Snoop was at that time, wherever everybody else on that cut was, it just didn't work. It just seemed like, you're trying to move over into this lane. There's already traffic there. It's just you're already in this lane. You're trying to get into this lane. There's already traffic there, and for some reason, your car is just not. It's you need to stay in your lane because the flow is already there's already a flow there. But and I can see it, where LL having a straddle, and I think bit by bit, knowing that he's going to have to take his foot off one, and then ultimately go over to the other. But since we're talking about Big Daddy Kane and KRS-One, let me illustrate this one point though. So Big Daddy Kane comes out in 87/88. KRS-One comes out in 86/87. Now look at 1994. When 93, when KRS-One comes out with Return of the Boom Bap. It's completely on point. It's completely with the times. He's not rapping like the kids. He's not doing what they're doing, but it's still KRS-One. Whereas I don't think that Big Daddy Kane could have come with anything like that in that time period. Right.
So I think that it has to do with, I think maybe that was Dawood did this say it. Maybe Kane just isn't aware of himself in the same way that KRS-One is. KRS-One he's doubled down on his assholeness. Like, he knows the kind of a person he is, and he's doubled down on it. Like, this is what he's going to do, and he's going to be this person. Maybe he got scared. Like, your man just came out. Like, he just comes on stage talking shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's KRS, but that's KRS-One being KRS-One, whereas it's like Big Daddy Kane isn't necessarily, I don't know if maybe he doesn't.
Well, okay. Just
I'm sorry. KRS-One is kind of, I guess we're going to be dealing like with Maslow's, pyramid. KRS-One is pretty much fully self-actualized. He knows who he is, what he's going to do. He's completely uncompromising in how he does his stuff, and he seems to drive forward like a bull with whatever he's doing. Like he said, he's just like I remember reading interviews. I mean, just like the interviews were classic. I remember him reading. He's just like, look, I mean, there are many other stars in the sky, but I'm the sun. And when the sun shines, you can't see any other stars. That's it. You know what I'm saying? He's like, when I see the top five on the charts of the top 5 rappers, I'm attacking every single one of them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just like, I lied. I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He's like, he fully is convinced about that type of thing. And so he was able to drive through with that type of focus differently than maybe Kane was, where he's kind of like, yo, yeah, feeling me and everything of that sort. So I'm going to do this, experiment a little bit, and, do my lyrical thing, do my sex symbol stuff. KRS is over here. He's just like, I got next. Duck down. Rappers are in danger. He's like, I don't care. I'll leave you naked in a box with multicolored tube socks. That's KRS-One. He's like, I don't care. Nelly, anybody else out there, I'm coming at him. And he's able to do that with a drive and with a tunnel vision that was able to give him consistent hardcore hits for those 5 albums. Like I said, like from 86 going up into the mid 90s, like around 93, 95 or so. Who can do that type of thing? It's unique.
And the interesting thing after that is what made him lose his grip after that. Because I remember when I got next, I was like, yo, this cat is still in it. He's still rocking. And then after that album.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we want to go there just quickly, I think the PM Dawn incident really, he lost a lot of stature, at least a lot of goodwill in a lot of people's eyes.
I don't think that was it, Stan, because he did that around sex and violence, and he did dip. People were like, "Yo, what's up with this dude?" He was trying to diss PRT, Perez teachers, and I wasn't down with that. You know what I mean? We wasn't down with that. But after that came Return of the Boom Bap, and then the album with the next album, and then but there was an album between I Got Next and Return of the Boom Bap that had MCs act like they don't know. What's that album?
KRS-One.
KRS-One.
Yeah, the one.
So he came back after that PM Dawn incident. He had a little tricky period around the sex and violence time, but then he was able to come back with 3 more solid albums. It was just after the I Got Next album that he just seemed kind of manic, and he could never come down.
We would definitely have to talk about that, because I think that as I've been writing about rappers, you will see from '98 beyond. Like I said, it's the world as the record labels fell. And as the internet grew, and as rap became like a more of a commercial thing that people bought into, it changed the direction of rap and how people rapped and what people rapped for. So as you got before 19, I guess I'm gonna cut it completely off. I've got 98 to 2003, 2004. 2003, 2004 is when you start getting your internet rappers, and so KRS-One, in between that time period, is trying to find his place among these type of people. So you've got people who are making the big major double platinum, triple platinum albums. Then you've got your quote unquote underground Talib Kweli types, and Talib Kweli is actually, he's not even among those people, because that group of people is really that's when the lyrical miracle rapper starts, when it's just people just like subliminal, criminals, grammatical,
That was
that's when
Raucous Records period.
Yes.
Some very talented people who were not matching with bangers all the time.
Yeah, they didn't have it yet.
Right.
They weren't doing what
KRS-One. So KRS-One didn't necessarily know where he fit in that era.
And
if
also,
you were to ask me.
And also new kings came into the mix. The Jay-Z's, the DMX's, it was going to be difficult.
Records. They sold a lot of records.
They did. And it made it difficult for KRS and artists like that to find their place. It's funny because his contemporaries, to me, just lost their grip on what to do. Rakim, the way he was rhyming, the way Kane was rhyming. Slick Rick, as great as he was, he had done some time, but when he came back, his style was basic compared to what it was. Cool G Rap, even still ill, felt like he had to do these kind of 16s with hooks. They didn't have the fire that they used to have and the stream of consciousness style. And to me, like, once it was a rap for them, it was a rap in terms of being top 5 in the game. That's those slots were taken. But the mistake I feel like they made was not returning to their original style of stream of consciousness lyrical, because that's what people love them for. Like when I hear new Big Daddy Kane records and new Rakim records, I'm always disappointed because I don't know what they've gotten away from what made them great.
Whereas Redman comes out, he's Redman, you know, like,
but he's not as dope.
No, he's not as dope, but he's still himself.
He is himself.
So then, then the task is, and I mean, we saw it with Stevie Wonder. We see it with a lot of folks. We see it with Seal. You see it with others. You cannot. There is just a point where things may work for several albums. You can be that guy or that artist for, hey, 3, 4, 5 albums. But then, and it's not like there's a tipping point. It may not necessarily be you. It may be what's around you.
True.
It may be somebody else. It may just be, you talk about how can they not be themselves? If the game has changed, you also have to think about the people who are listening. Their taste may have changed. It's just, you think about where we were and just where we were back, like 87, 88, you've got De La, you've got Kane, you've got all these folks coming out. But even on top of that, you've got Soul II Soul. You think about R&B, where it was up until, you had New Jack Swing, you had everybody else, I'm sure, the OJs were still putting out records, you had the Minneapolis sound, but then all of a sudden there's this sound coming out of the UK where, the drum machine is king and they're adding strings and things like that. So because of that, your taste may have changed, as well. So it may not necessarily mean it may be, it's like, what, out of the $20 that I've allocated for albums, somebody from the rap pile is got to wait, either to like the next paycheck, or I just may not get to them, or maybe, I can listen to somebody. It's just like, hey, I'm not ready to get that. Taste change, landscapes change.
Well, how's Kanye West still doing it?
But just
that's a whole other conversation. I kind of wanted to go back into, because like you said, there's so many elements of people who appeared with this show, like with Kane stuff. I really liked Mad Lion. Nice and Smooth coming out to Pimpin' Ain't Easy was kind of representative of the problem with that album, because I remember listening to that and I was just like,
Pimpin' Ain't Easy.
Yeah, Pimpin' Ain't Easy. That's what I'm saying. Pimpin' Ain't Easy. I was just like, yo, this was sick. I was just like,
but
big whoopee. I hope I don't get a cookie. Oh, is all I want to hear. I'm just like, I remember hearing it just like, Kane, what are you doing, man? And it's just like,
but I think but I think it also goes into, even when he goes into Taste of Chocolate and ultimately getting Dolomite, I think there was just, yes. You can
Taste of Chocolate. That's not even something we want to say.
Yeah. It's just
like, I feel like Daoud didn't even want to refer to Taste of Chocolate. He was like, it's a Big Daddy thing and Prince of Darkness. Like he wants to skip over
right.
Taste of Chocolate. Because that cover and everything, it looked like a bad porn.
Like Madonna has messed yourself. No, you messed yourself up, and you allowed Madonna to mess it up.
Yeah, don't cry for help, dear. You put yourself there. But no. but can't even pronounce your words correct. But in retrospect, that's a shame. But at 89, who gives a heck? But no, I think that also is just part of him being that lover man, that blaxploitation. That was just, and those cuts were on there where it's just sort of like, I'm large now, I'm comfortable now. It's like, like with even at the end of Pimpin' Ain't Easy, what about the Lazy Lays part? And then Cliff Love coming in, and Cliff Love, all I've known him is just being a dancer.
Right.
And I know there's a lot more than that. He's about like, how about, where the hamana, you get all that stuff, and you're just sort of like, yeah, this is, you were just, yeah.
And not from King Asiatic. That was a rough thing for a lot of us.
Yeah, I can dig it. I can dig it. Yeah, I can dig it. It's, again, I just think that he just reached that point where sort of, okay, I've reached out to folks. I've dropped some lyrics, and I don't even know it was a question of just, let's just have some fun. But I think it's just sort of, oh, you've got this, feel now that you're this sex symbol, and, let that reflect in my, in my lyrics on the next album. And let it also be seen on the album cover, because basically he went from almost being a god on Long Live the Kane to just being, sort of like a player, like trying to be like
I think you really touched on it though, Stan, when you just talked about how people may have it for a certain time period, and then they, because I think about the Jungle Brothers, like their first and second album was just like phenomenal, but then it's just like,
that third album, yeah, that was.
It has a lot to do with who's steering the ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
The new Sly Stone scene. Go ahead and tell the story that we.
No. I mean, look, it's a mishmash story, but I remember years ago talking to Bambaataa, and he was just like, because he speaks in kind of a stream of consciousness way, and he's like, yeah, and they got brothers coming in the studio and you trying to advise them. And they're like, well, I'm the new Sly Stone. And he was talking about Africa Baby Band. And the thing is, when you hear these guys talk about their past and how they might have missed each other and things got lost in translation, those are the stories you don't hear that they all know amongst themselves. Like, that mug is crazy. That guy. And you know what? But here's the ill joint. We used to hear about the original Funky Wisdom Masters album, which is a lot of which came out on JB's with the Remedy, which a lot of people didn't really get. Now that album is available on YouTube. You can hear it. And I remember Saul Williams, he hit me up and he was like, that album is incredible. But that's his, he's an Afro-punk type dude. That's his style. When I listened to it, it was incredible in a lot of ways. It wasn't what it could have been, or maybe what it should have been, especially when you look at like Low End Theory for the time. But it was an incredible thing. It was ahead of its time, but there's never been a time where it would have hit the way they wanted it to hit.
Okay.
It was just a totally experimental type thing that would not have popped.
Just, quickly before we sort of like, push along,
right.
Kwame had made an interesting point on one show, I think it was either VH1, they were talking about rap. And he said that you've got to treat it like it's high school. And I think this is coming from when he came in and his deals with the industry. So you got to treat it like high school, 4 years and out. And I can understand in terms of like, the label, in terms of how tastes change and how all of a sudden you can be, you can be the man 1 minute and then, just like in professional soccer, surplus to requirements, by the time your next album comes out. But I think, and I think that may be the case with Kane. I think where you all have made, important parts about KRS is just constantly just being who he is and just trying to constantly refine his product, whether it's refining his delivery, whether it's refining just, what he talks about and just also who he targets, or the trendiness of it all, just going after, it's like, okay, well, you're number one, I'm going to go after you. But, it begs the question. There are a lot of factors at work. I think there's, you can't just say it's just totally someone's artistic vision.
True.
It could also be, and it may not even be necessarily their drive. There's always that point. And I think with the industry or professional sports or whatever, there is a point where you get to that point where you want to be. You may even exceed that point. But, I don't think it's ever going to be where you're just going to be consistently, you may not necessarily be a consistent seller, where it's like, 4 or 5 million copies. And I'm just, just using that as a number, or from a critical standpoint where you're just constantly like, like Stevie Wonder was, Talking Book, Innovisions, I was about to jump to Secret Life of Plants,
Yeah,
but,
but see, but that's the thing. It's like those people were experimenting and trying to do something different. Whereas now, a person who has longevity will do like Rick Ross. They'll just make the same album over and over again, or Drake make the same album over and over again. It's like they found a formula and they stick with it. So I think that that's a different thing.
Except Kanye.
I was going to say.
No, exactly. Except for Kanye, because Kanye is a different thing altogether. I think that Kanye is, he's definitely going to a different drummer. He's not. I've been trying to figure out Kanye since Kanye first came out, and from what I can see is that there's something that's driving him. It's not driving most people that are musicians.
True.
And I think that what he desires is not the same thing that a lot of people desire. I think, like, again, like you take someone like Jay-Z. I don't think that Jay-Z is looking at rap like, okay, I got to come out and like put out a banger. I don't think he's looking at rap like that. I think that he's done all he wants to do.
Feels like he's done it.
Yeah, I don't think he's even thinking about it like that. I think that
he done drove every car.
I think with his business ambitions, he's just like, okay, cool, I'm good. I'm in the billionaire status. I'm in this good situation. But I do feel that being that he is a listener and a fan, he's very carefully listening, kind of like KRS. Who are the top 5? Who's running stuff? And if they're saying something interesting, I'm either going to acknowledge them in one way or another. But if they say anything slick about me, I'm coming at them. Oh, what is it? Drake said something slick about me in an interview or on a record. Oh, I'm coming at him. Yeah, Mrs. Drizzy, that type of stuff. And that's what I give Jay-Z, is that because Jay-Z is kind of with the high school metaphor you spoke about. Jay-Z is the most unlikely to succeed when he first came out and became the most successful of his graduating class. Because nobody was looking at Jay-Z and Can I Get Open in 91, 30 years ago. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Saying, oh, this guy's going to be number one and he's going to have a bigger career than Big Daddy Kane.
No way.
But he had the drive and the vision to say, yo, I'm going to get there and even further. I'm going to get
and the focus.
The focus. I'm going to get beyond Kane. I'm going to get beyond Biggie, who's inspiring me and who I'm lyrically competitive with. You know what I'm saying? Because because like you said, I'm focused, man. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. I'm going to hit it from all sides. I might not be into the intricacies of building and establishing the business and the hustle like the way Dame Dash might be, but I know my celebrity and my status as an artist, how to leverage that. So I'm going to leverage that for my celebrity, and I'm going to make sure lyrically I'm never going to fall off. That's the thing, like with Jay-Z. He's been able to stay in the game lyrically and do his thing. So, like I said, his drive, Kanye's drive, KRS's drive are very unique situations that you're kind of like, that's something to observe. And if an artist can look at that and get inspired to do what they have to do and kind of break through any problems, they're probably going to get a good degree of success.
But each of the people that you just mentioned are themselves at all times. Like Kanye, if you look at old interviews with Kanye when he was like just a producer, he's the same person. You know, like Jay-Z's he's been consistently the same person.
Authenticity.
You know? So I think that that's a key attribute to that. Whereas, like, mention someone like LL. Like LL, when LL first came out, I thought that LL was going to be the greatest MC to ever live. Like, I thought that LL, I remember listening to Bad and thinking, like, who could possibly do this better than this man? You know, like the doo-wop, from that to Breakthrough. And then he came with the next album, Walking with the Panther, and I was like, okay, nah. But after that, I think that, like, once you started getting to like 89, 90, 91, I don't think that MCs were necessarily trying to be the best MC until Nas comes around. Like when Nas comes around, it's like everyone's like, okay, I gotta lift my game up. I gotta be a better MC. But there's no one's rhyming now trying to be the best MC. There's who we can even think of. The only person I even heard say something similar to that is Nick Grant. And most people don't even know Nick Grant. That's the only person I've heard say, I want to be the best MC. Like, I don't think that, like,
no, everyone's trying to be number two.
Around thinking, you know what? I got the Sonics down. Now let me go ahead and be the best rapper.
No,
that's not happening.
I think the competition of the top five of who's running stuff, you know, of the Drake, and whomever else is big, is a little bit different. And that's the thing. The only person, like you said, I guess along with Nick Drake, who you mentioned, the only person who has that type of drive and has that type of focus and has put out those type of records is Kendrick Lamar. He's done it for like 3-4 albums where he's come strong. I mean, Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly.
Don't get me talking about Kendrick Lamar on here.
Okay.
I just have to see. He's the only one who has had the level of focus. Like when he came on Control and mopped up everybody on there, Big Sean. And
okay, I cannot go on air. I cannot have this post without me saying how that came together. It's impossible. That song came together. He put his verse on after everyone else had their verse on there. No one knew that song was going to be that. If everyone had known that song was going to be that, they would have come with different rhymes. So I have to make sure that I put that in there, because if everyone knew what he was going to say on that song, even Big Sean would have came with something else. And Big Sean, for what it's worth, he can rap, you know. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Jay Electronica would have said something different. So again, one day we're going to have a sit down and let's read the lyrics. We're going to read Kendrick Lamar's lyrics. And then we're going to come back to that conversation, because we're yes to what you're saying, but there's a lot of words in there that don't mean nothing.
We definitely got to come to that conversation, because one thing I think is that, well, okay. Yeah,
y'all going to make me listen to lyrics again.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having 5 sessions all in one when we need to definitely.
Pretty much. And in that, we actually need to wind down, because I'm pushing up against the wall, just in terms of what we can record. So just, 30 seconds each, your closing thoughts about Verzuz with Kane and KRS.
Well,
Malud?
Yes.
Okay, let me look at the time. I appreciate the fact that we were able to see hip hop in the way that we know hip hop to be. And I think that that's something that has kind of been missing from the conversation of what rap is. Rap is a component of hip hop. And in this, we had the DJ, we had the rapper, and we had the dancer. The only thing that we were missing was the writer. So I appreciate the fact that we were able to have all the components of hip hop in one Verzuz.
Okay.
Almost
all right. Thank you.
Them.
All right. Dawood?
Yes, I definitely agree that I just thought it was great to have these two titans of lyricism be able to come together in this era and go up against each other and demonstrate that for all of us who are fans, who have followed all their records, and to, of course, introduce it to an audience older but specifically younger, to show that this is where the standards come from. As a listener and as a fan, the type of music that we were listening to from 86 into like 92, 93, what people can call golden era or whatever, I would say it's a platinum era, because it would be stronger than any other golden era, when you have Big Daddy Kane, Public Enemy, KRS-One Boogie Down Productions, Chuck D, everything that was going on with West Coast, especially with Ice Cube and other artists. That whole standard is why we have question about certain stuff that comes out, and we might be only inclined to listen to certain things, how we can respect what people are doing, but those type of standards are what made music good, and how that enriched our listening and our lives and expanded who we are and what we do as people. So I was very amped about it. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to go back to it. I really dug what Scratch and Kid Capri did on different sides of, being more. You like Scratch, Scratch being more of a trick DJ who does know how to mix stuff, and Kid Capri showing his show types thing. The B-boys being represented. So I really enjoyed how that versus went down. I thought it was one of the best verses that have been put out.
Okay. King?
We never got to talk about Scratch and Kid Capri. Maybe later down the line we will. But yeah, because that was awkward. But I was totally happy about the fact that we got to see, even though it was a celebration, we got to see a contest or a battle that we never thought we would see. Because when these guys came to the game, there was a lot of talk about conflicts and battles, but the stakes were too high. But now we actually got to see it 30 plus years later. So that's awesome. And I'm also glad that it was on a platform that everyone has access to, and that now it's in the archives for the next generations, just like this Wu-Tang series, for people to see the culture of years past. Because hip hop culture now means to, especially young people, something totally different that it meant to us. But with this representation, we're getting to see it in its raw and beautiful form. So that hopefully will inspire newer generations who have artistic integrity. So,
okay, great. And I'll just end with this. I just think overall it was an entertaining night. I felt like my wife and I were watching, we were dancing, we were just, in it and having to explain to, our 10-year-old and our 8-year-old, just, who these two men were, what all is going on stage, and for the parts that we could, allow them to watch. But, overall, I think we got to see showmanship. We got to see, lyricism. You got to see a degree of professionalism. You also got to see just, we definitely got our share of nostalgia. And I think just overall you left with experiencing and feeling something. And I think just on a whole, if everyone's still trying to pick out a winner, they've got their points. The culture won and we won. And I'll just that's just my thing. And I'll just leave it at that. And with that, we've got to close this out. Again, Malu, Dawood, Asin, thank you so much. This is what we used to do 30 years ago. This is what we used to do. We're talking back then when it was standard def. You relied on Maxell recording tapes or, somebody's VHS. And this is how we sort of like documented stuff. But to that end, we close this out and we wish everyone well. I hope everyone has a blessed one. Keep shining, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.